Good evening. Welcome to Mag Commentary. I'm glad you were able to tune in with us today. Bob, who's my co-host, he's also with us today. And we will be discussing where we left off before about the removal of blacks from this society, as Malcolm X would say, by any means necessary. We already talked about the impending race war that will, that if it does proceed, that it could obliterate many blacks from this face of this earth. Hello, Bob. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing just fine, Mac. Thanks again for inviting me to the show.
Yeah, Bob, I know that you've been doing a lot of research and study concerning the Planned Parenthood. But before we get into it, I'd just like to point out that I received a comment from a young lady that she has never heard anything so wrong as my theory on the relationship of the minister to the gangster rap groups, and such as the NWA and others. Well, and also that she was not, I was wrong also in the area saying that the detrimental effects of the gangster rap lyrics on our young people is astronomical. Like for the past 25 years, they've been fed this here denigrating type of stuff and regarding their own self-worth and the violence and everything else that goes along with it, and how they make money through drugs and all these other different types of things, as well as the materialism of it. Now, if she think I'm wrong for in laying that out like that, and that it's not our people and young people in particular, many of them now in their 40s, have not been influenced by this this gangster type of rap like that, then all she has to do is take a ride through the inner cities of our cities throughout this nation and see the destruction, the violence, the killings, and the drugs and everything else. And if I'm also wrong, so is the minister, because he has pointed out some of these things about the killings and that they need to stop. And I'm just saying, relating a lot of those killings back to that gangster rap of where they glorify guns and killing each other. And also, potentially our potential presidential running person right now by the name of Ben Carson, I guess he's wrong too, because he feels in some ways the same way I do, or at least I feel the same way that he does about many of these issues. But I don't know, we just going to have to sit back here and try to understand what is the problem. And I think the problem that we have with our young people right now is that they don't read or they can't read, and their idea of relaxation is a 40-ounce of liquor or something with a joint and a rap song that's going on, or a video, and that's denigrating him. And in the case of the young women, their idea is the same thing, except they are listening to a rapper calling them a whore or a bitch, and giving them instructions on how to give them a blowjob. So if that's not a problem, sister, then I'm sorry. And I just feel that, as Ben Carson said, that what he would call all of this stuff is moral decay of our people and our nation. And that's what's going on right now. And I think it's being perpetrated by the gangster rappers. based on what I've read with those lyrics, in those lyrics. Bob, what else do you see that may be going on at this particular time that may be trying to annihilate the black race here in America?
Well, I think that you pointed out some very valid circumstances that we need to be very consciously aware of. I would say that this person to whom you refer, you never know. Sometimes people comment, and you don't know what their motives are. You don't know. She could very well be an agent, perhaps for a rap group. Perhaps she's a public relations person, and she doesn't want that kind of information to be put out there about her group or about that type of activity, because it would have a negative impact on her revenue stream. Because actually, that's really what it comes down to. How much money can be made off of all of these activities. Those rappers, they would not put that out were it not generating millions of dollars for themselves, their promoters, their developers, their producers, and perhaps she could be one of them. But I would say this regarding the genocide of black people in America and in the world. There's too many of us. It took I think it was, I forget the statistics on it, but to get to the population of 1 billion people or 2 billion people, it took a number of years. And now we're at 7 billion. Well, within the next 100 years, I think we're going to accumulate another 2 billion people. So it'll be 9 billion people on this planet. And all of the sources of that are necessary to sustain that kind of a humankind are being stressed very severely. So we know that you either have to slow down the creation of people, or once they are conceived, you have to get rid of them, and that's what the role of groups like Planned Parenthood, for example, are doing. But moreover, an organization like Planned Parenthood, of which it's just one of some 2,000 to 3,000 organizations like itself in this country, and all of them, by the way, are not abortion oriented. Some of them are strictly to assist in female health care. But Planned Parenthood, since its inception and its founding by Margaret Sanger, a racist eugenicist person whose intent when she founded the organization was the elimination of black people, has been very active in that since they were founded, and they're very active in that today. They have operations in black communities throughout the United States, and they, on a daily basis, kill, murder young black fetuses and Caucasian and other race fetuses as well. But we're focused on the black fetus.
Well,
so I would say this, that they are doing a very good job of killing blacks, and I guess this person that commented would say, "Oh, they're wrong for saying things like that." Well, If it affects her pocketbook, I'm sure she would take that attitude because the people that are at the head of Planned Parenthood, I think the head of it right today is a black woman who was a nurse, and there have been blacks throughout history who have promoted it. But if we don't keep ourselves aware of these facts, and actually, Mac, I think a lot of us just don't care. I mean, why should I care if some other black person is being killed? If they're not, if the hangman's not at my door and he's just hanging my neighbor, why should I care? I won't get concerned until he knocks on my door with his hangman's noose.
You're right, Bob. On some statistics on that, I'm told that, and this really comes from blackgenocide.org with the Pastor Childress Jr. That's his website, and he's very adamant about the black genocide in this country. And some of the statistics on this that minority women constitute only about 13% of the female population. That's age 15 through 44 in the United States, but they underwent approximately 36% of the abortions. On average, 1,876 black babies are aborted every day in the United States. And our population right now is somewhere around 36 to 40 million people. Well, at the rate that those babies are being killed on a daily basis, we are missing over 16 million people, and that's an enormous loss for us. Now, without the abortion, American black communities will be now approaching 52 million persons instead of 40 million. So we'll be 36% larger than what we currently are.
Yes. Well, that's you see, those are stark figures that you lay out there, and as you were saying that, it occurs to me back that in 1951, Paul Robeson, one of our most outstanding icons in America. Not only was he a good American, but he was as they used to say then, he was a credit to his race. He was a black man. A lot of people don't even know who Paul Robeson was, but I'll say this: he went before the United Nations in 1951 and said, "We charge genocide," and they castigated this brother and called him a communist and did all kinds of scurrilous things to him, and I say that for this reason. And I guess the statistics that you just articulated, while they are stark and really hurtful, it makes me wonder why our leaders today, who have television shows, they have there are writers in the newspapers, they have I think one person even owns a TV station, and they owns a network, and they even own television stations. Why is it that they don't highlight this genocidal trend that is going on in our community? Why is it that just two guys like you and me discuss this, and when you talk about it, people look at it and get upset about it? It's almost like they don't want you to even acknowledge that it exists. I mean, so it just makes me wonder: are they afraid of something? Are they afraid if they come out and say, you're killing our race? This is a race question that confronts us here. Is this population control of the African American race? We don't have any statue to say these things. We're not billionaires or at least I'm not, Mac. I don't know how much money you have. I know you're a pretty secure guy, but I know I'm not. So I don't have that kind of statue where if I speak like a Donald Trump, people will listen. You remember that ad that used to say, when E.F. Hutton speaks, people listen. Well, when Bob speaks, they tell him to shut up and sit down, because I don't have any money or influence. So I could scream genocide. I could get a big bullhorn and drive up and down the street and say, people, let's get organized, because they're killing us little by little, legislatively, and also through actual activity of police killings, etc. And nobody would they would ignore me and perhaps lock me up.
Well, I tell you, someone who aspiring to have a bully pulpit, so to speak, to articulate his views on this abortions and genocide of the African Americans is Dr. Ben Carson. Now, he is talking about it, and I've heard him on several occasions speak about the genocide, and he's also talked about this Margaret Sanger that you spoke of, and he called her a racist for what she started this whole what is it called, the Parenthood thing here?
Yes, the Planned Parenthood.
Yeah, right, the Planned Parenthood. She started that back at the turn of the last century, and all the way up through, I think she died in 1962. But she was part of Hitler used to give advice to him, and he was into eugenics. That's removing the unfit from the race of mankind.
All right. Well, that's very inspiring for you to point out that Dr. Ben Carson is talking like this. I'm very impressed with that. I'm glad he's. I'm gonna have to take a closer look at him. I'm a Republican, Democrat. I consider myself an American, but I'm going to take a very serious look at him. But to your point about Margaret Sanger, this woman, she was not a nice person. I mean, and all of the blacks that are out there supporting her need to become aware of who she was. I mean, this woman, she used to give speeches before the women part of the Ku Klux Klan. As a matter of fact, in her book, she talks about how she went to what happened to her when she was giving a speech to the Ku Klux Klan, and how after she gave the speech, the women were so inspired that she got many invitations to speak at other of their rallies. Now, I know that the Ku Klux Klan is a civil rights organization for racist whites. So I guess perhaps that was her motive for doing that. But they have been one of the most prolific groups eliminating black people. If you go all the way back to the hanging escapades that they went on, just literally killing us. And even to this day, you have down in the South the White Citizens Councils, and they are very subtly supporting political candidates today, but they do it very deceptively. I mean, they wear pinstripe suits, and so you would never know. They have kind of put aside that white robe. And just as Margaret Sanger, she, in addition to pointing out how she used to speak to the Ku Klux Klan female arms, she talks about how she was friend with a guy named Dr. Gamble, Procter and Gamble, and they had their Negro Project, which was a project to sterilize black women. So she's got a long history of genocide, and we don't. If we know about it, we don't talk about it. But I think it's time that people start putting this out there, because we're living in a so-called age of transparency. Well, let's be transparent about some of these things that affect us.
You're right, Bob, and going back on that same staying on track here, what we talked about in earlier programs about the duplicity and complicity of our so-called leaders. I mean, why aren't they speaking out on this if they're not part of the problem? If they're not part of the solution, then they must be part of the problem, right? And
that's right. You're absolutely right.
Especially all the. I mean, I would have been a Democrat for a number of years, but at this point in time in my life, it doesn't matter as far as what I've looked at over the last 5 decades. Is it doesn't make any difference who's in the White House as far as blacks are concerned.
That's right.
Not from my. I'm just saying from my perspective,
well, you're absolutely right. I mean, let's just take that for a moment. We've had a black man in the White House for the last 6+ years, and actually, well, maybe his being there has caused this to become more highlighted. But we're seeing more and more blacks being killed by police. That's being highlighted more. It's been highlighted more than any time that I've seen. Now, perhaps that's a result of his occupying the White House. But in terms of the betterment, that's a destructive element for black people. But in terms of betterment, the unemployment rate coming down, I think more of us being mainstreamed economically, you might call it. I think that's gotten worse. I mean, I think there's so many of us on food stamps, so many of us unemployed, so many of us, and Dr. Carson, I did hear him say this in a news blurb I watched several weeks ago. He said that one of the things that is hurtful to the black community is for young fellas is that the young fellas killing young fellas. Well, that has even seemed to have increased during this time. So even though we've had a black man in the White House, I don't think things have gotten better for us. At least, I guess the best thing I can say is that they seem to have at least stood still, but I think they've gotten worse.
Well, I mean, it's just like Dr. Carson has stated, the same thing that I stated here recently, that and the minister has stated, and many people have stated, that economics have stated, is that that the blacks have more than $1 trillion flowing through their hands every year, and they put that in perspective, Bob. I've read information that the Hispanics they turn money over in their community at least 4 to 6 times. Whites turn theirs over at least 8 to 10 times or 12 times. And the Asians turn theirs over 12 to 14, 16 times. But the Jew turns the money over in their community 20 times. Now, blacks, we turn money over in our community 1 time. Now, perhaps you can explain what the effect of that, Bob, on our communities.
Well, it's I'm not an economist, Mac, but I would say this. I mean, that's the way it, and I believe your statistic. I'm not refuting that at all. But if that's the circumstance that confronts us, I don't know how you deal with that. it just shows, I guess, that although we've been here all this time, and some of those other people that you mentioned, they have been here a shorter time than the most of us. We don't understand how this system works, and
that's because we have an open community where everybody can come in and do whatever they want to do and take whatever they want to out. We don't have a line of demarcation, so to speak, say like a Chinatown or something like that. Now, I believe Dr. Anderson, Claude Anderson, talks about this in his book, Powernomics. Now, one of the things that Dr. Carson talked about is that what we should be doing is taking that money and harnessing that $1 trillion that's flowing through our hands and build things within our community. Now, this is what Dr. Carson is saying, who's running for president of the United States. And I'm going to tell you, Bob, when I heard him make that statement, and I'll get that clip to you, I was aghast because I have never heard a president talk about doing anything positive like what we've been talking about is if you teach a man how to fish, he can feed himself for the rest of his life. And that's what Dr. Carson is talking about doing should he become president.
Right. And that is such a poignant observation that you make there, because now here he is. He's a so-called Republican, right?
That's right.
As a black person, it shouldn't make me any difference whether I'm a Republican or a Democrat, or in the old days, the people that used to keep their foot on our neck, they used to call them Dixiecrats. Old Strom Thurmond and James O. Eastland and Richard Russell, all those racist senators from the South. They were so-called Dixiecrats, and here we are Republicans. Here you have a Republican who is saying something that is beneficial to us as a people. What if you had a Democrat say anything like that? I mean, you got Hillary Clinton, the wife of former President Bill Clinton. And they talk about, what a great guy this guy was. Slick Willie. Well, Slick Willie did a lot of damage to the black people, and people just love him, man. So I would say maybe it's about time that we stop endorsing these labels of Democrat or Republican. Let's call ourselves Republicrats and Dixiecrats.
Well,
and stop this whole nonsense and look at people like Dr. Carson, perhaps, who, if he is elected, would do some of these things, because he's going to do it for the whole country, because he knows this guy has worked with. I've watched some of the things he's done over his career. He's worked with poor people, and he's set up reading centers all over the United States so that people can learn how to read.
Oh yeah.
That's something simple, but at least it shows that he's for the little guy,
Well, he has a Carson Foundation where he gives out scholarships as well as to the person who achieves high academics, and they give them a big trophy, just like the football players get.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, I want to get back though to the point that you were laying out about how he was talking about increasing and building economic programs within our community. That is so important. And why, when he makes a statement like that, don't our other leaders, so-called, and as I was saying, it shouldn't matter to them whether they consider themselves a Democrat or a Republican. If they hang you, I don't think they put a label on it. Whether you're a Democrat, I'm hanging you because you're a Democrat. I'm hanging you. No, they hanging you because you black.
Right.
So if you see a Republican or a person that's running under that label, that's going to do something for the race, endorse him, help him out, That's what I thought was going to happen when our current president was elected. But
Oh
no,
yeah.
that's
Well,
that didn't happen because we are the first and the last to always get kicked in the teeth.
right.
And when you talk like that, people say, "Oh, you're just from victimology." We'll say, "What does that mean?" Well, you just always talk about how the black man is a victim. No, I'm I'm just telling you how I see the world from my perspective, and it's not to be offensive. It's just to be realistic about what I see. I mean, if you tell me simply, that this is, let's say you point out a bird to me and you say, "Oh, that's a robin," and yet when I look at it and it starts walking across my yard and it starts quacking and it's got large flat feet, and I'll say, "Oh no, that looks like a duck to me." "Oh no, Bob, who you gonna believe, me or your lying eyes?"
Right. That's right. You still there, Bob?
Yeah, I'm still here, back.
Well, okay. Well, I tell you that is a great observation that you've made there. I think that we should stay on course with this and follow up with what's going on with Dr. Carson, because I think he's the man to with the plan out there. And I've
that's excellent. Yeah, I'll do that, back.
And he also talks a lot. He doesn't hold back anything. He talks about the eugenics or the of what's happening with the Planned Parenthood in America, that they out to get rid of black babies, and there's statistics right there that shows what they are doing.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Mac, I'm so grateful that that you do this kind of research and put this out for the people, because like that old adage that I've heard, and I think I first heard my grandfather say it. So it's been a long, long time. But you can lead a horse to water, or a mule. He used to say, you can lead a mule to water, but you can't make that thing drink, boy.
Well,
and so.
Right.
I guess a lot of our people are like that. You put out all these beautiful statistics, and then people will write you and say, "Oh, why is he saying that?" He don't know what he don't know what he's talking about. Well, they could go research it for themselves, just as you have.
Well, you know what the thing it is, that people have a mindset now, Bob. We as a people have been so used to the government giving us everything, begging somebody else to take care of us, all the way back to slavery, since
Yes.
we've been in this country here, and that many of us, not all of us, of course, many of us are doing quite well, But
That's right.
But it's so many of us, and racism and all this type of stuff. It's very profitable for some people,
Oh, absolutely.
So as long as they can keep stuff going, like the fight, to go out there and lay down. That's what some of them are saying, that we should go out there and lay down and die or fight for our rights or whatever. And I don't see any reason for that. If we, just as a group of people, as a race of people in this country, one of the best countries in the world by any means, and I've been to other countries, and why do people beg? They'll give their right arm to come to this country to have an opportunity. I mean,
That's right.
people from all parts of the world. And I tell you, if we as a people can't seem to get ourselves here, we all want to be better than the other person, other black person, and what are we doing? We're destroying each other. We don't want to try to pool our resources together just like Dr. Anderson has said, just like Dr. Carson is saying. You got all this money flowing through your community, and you don't want to try to harness that. Why go out here and rabble-rouse and do things when you can simply take all that energy and put that energy into telling people, say, hey, let's get 1 million people to invest and raise $1 billion. And you know what what could happen with $1 billion if you start a charter bank. You know, you have 16 times that amount available to invest and build things in your community that will create jobs for the people. And you don't have to go out there begging, wondering why this place here, or Jesse Jackson won't have to go around trying to get this company here to give somebody a job or whatever. If we take if we take all that energy and try to build our own community, and there's a blueprint out there, and I keep repeating this, it's called Powernomics by Dr. Claude Anderson. Bob, I think we're going to end that for this evening, but it's been a real lively conversation. I appreciate you coming on, and we will do another one after Labor Day and see what happens between now and, say, next Tuesday.
Well, thank you so much for having me on again, Mac, and you have a nice Labor Day, you and your family, and I appreciate you, because I'll tell you, the observations that you make are so valuable for us, and it's I hope that more people will heed Mac's commentary and listen to those comments and the advice that you provide, because it's very valuable in my opinion. Thank you very much, and good night, Mac.
Good night, Bob, and thank you for tuning in tonight, and have a great weekend and holiday.